what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson, and I am sitting across from Mr. Chris Fry, both of us from the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to talking about the films today. I mean, I always look forward to it, but...
Well, I was going to say, don't you always look forward to talking about the films with me?
Yes, I do.
But today maybe a little bit, maybe a tad more intrigue to it.
We've got one of the biggest films that people have been anticipating for a while with The Batman. So I think that, and then, it's already come out in March, which is kind of crazy. It wasn't even like a summer movie. We got it really early because usually around this time, before the Oscars, and even a little bit afterwards, you kind of hit this slump where not a lot's happening a lot of times, and we have to go for more independent films. Mm-hmm. So to get this huge film dropping in March, it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And then I'm excited because we're also talking about a film that's fresh from Sundance, and it's called Fresh.
Fresh.
And so that's exciting that we're already getting to talk about a film that was just at Sundance recently.
Yes.
So, not a lot of people know a lot about it, including you.
I did not either. I honestly, you wrote me and said, "Hey, let's review this film." I said, "I don't know anything about it, but sure." I queued it up. It's on Hulu, and watched it just late last night. And I will definitely have some thoughts to share later in the episode. That one's going to be an interesting review. I will leave it at that. But you're right. The first one we're going to be talking about is the film The Batman. So we're going to have a couple reviews: The Batman, and then the film Fresh on Hulu. We'll be talking about both of those, followed by a little bit of movie news. We're going to talk about the Independent Spirit Awards that were just happened this weekend and some of the winners from that award ceremony. And then Chris and I will both have a recommendation of a film we think is worth checking out that we want to share with you. So, Chris, why don't we just go ahead and don the cape and cowl and jump right into our first review. It is Matt Reeves' version, the latest version of The Batman.
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
So, Chris, I did a little math over the weekend after seeing The Batman.
Okay.
By my count, this is now our seventh actor to play the Batman in a movie.
Okay.
We've had 6 different directors.
Wow.
We've had 3 different Catwomen. Catwomen is plural, correct? Okay. Yeah.
I believe so. Yes.
5 different Jim Gordons. Okay, so a lot of numbers, a lot of versions all floating out there.
And does that include those numbers? Does that include Lego Batman?
No, I did not include Lego Batman.
Which I think is one of your favorites, right?
I did enjoy that movie quite a bit. So add one more to each of those numbers. Okay. We've actually had 8 Batman actors, 7 Batman directors, 4 Catwomen, 6 Jim Gordons.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is quite a bit. We've had everything ranging from campy humor to the gothic macabre to action thrillers to gaudy comic booky styles, dark to brooding. I mean, it's just the whole wide range to Lego versions now.
Yeah, sure.
Everything in between. So my simple question to you, Chris, after watching Matt Reeves' The Batman, which stars Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, along with Colin Farrell and played Gordon.
Oh,
Jeffrey
Wright. Yes.
Sorry. My whole question to you is, does this version of the Batman have a reason to exist given all those other versions and iterations we've had? That's my question to you.
Wow. So pretty loaded question there. And having seen it, and spoiler, I did like it. I would say yes, it does have a reason to exist, and the reason would be, imagine if you told David Fincher, director of Seven and Zodiac, I want you to make a Batman movie and imagine what you'd get. And if that sounds like something you would like, then you will probably like this film. It does sound something that would be highly interesting to me. And that's how I kind of took this film. Basically, the film takes the approach of, which I think a line of the comics, you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things is like Batman detective or something like there's a strong detective element to a lot of the comics that Batman's in. And I feel like this movie is one of the first to actually kind of explore like, okay, yeah, this dude, not only does he go around beating people up and he's a vigilante or whatever, which the other movies had explored. He has a tortured past. Yes, other movies have explored that. But the actual detective notion of it, I don't really feel like has been explored. So that was something new for me that I found interesting. So I say yes.
Okay.
I felt like it did have a reason to exist. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I got a lot of thoughts here. A lot of things I think I really liked about the film. I did ultimately really like the film.
Okay.
Had a really good time with it. And several things I can point out to it. Some misgivings, some things I don't think worked as well, some things I think that kind of tripped up the whole experience a bit.
Okay.
But I will just say, and let me back up for a second and just
Sure.
kind of give a quick little plot synopsis of kind of what happens in the film. Not that the plot is what you really are driven to go see the Batman for. I mean, really, you go to see the Batman and the characters and everything, and the gadgets and the car.
Sure.
But anyway, the plot here is when the Riddler, who is a sadistic serial killer, and he's played by
Paul Dano.
There you go. Begins murdering key political figures in Gotham. The Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his own family's involvement. As I mentioned, Robert Pattinson playing Bruce Wayne / Batman. Let's just start with him. Let me kind of key into him first.
Okay.
I will go ahead and tell you.
Well, then, to be fair, too, that's what a lot of people are going to be talking about. You would assume it's like, okay, who is playing the central figure?
Well, for several reasons. A, because it was kind of an interesting, a little controversial choice when he was announced that he was going to be the new Bruce Wayne.
Mr. Twilight.
But also, I will go on record saying I think this film is the first version of Batman we've seen in a movie where Batman is truly the central key character that we spend not only the most time with, but we actually get to really get in the head of, which, you know, you could argue that past movies, I'll even say the Nolan films, Christopher Nolan's films, I think we're always a little more interested in Bruce Wayne. I think the Batman character was more of a, yeah, okay, we got to put him in the costume sometimes and he's got to do these things. But there seemed to be just as much time spent on him. And then, of course, you know, the Burton and the Schumacher films were all about the villains. It was like Batman was kind of an afterthought half the time. This is the first film where I'm like, no, this is truly like, yeah, the villain is not, doesn't dominate the film. Supporting characters don't dominate the film. We start with a voiceover narration of Batman.
Oh, we'll get to the voiceover.
And we close with a voiceover narration.
Oh, well,
and I think, I mean, I want to say ratio wise, he is out of the costume maybe 10% of his running time on it, which is pretty impressive too, to have an actor like Robert Pattinson that, you know, could draw an audience. I think people wanted to see him in there. And you've got him covered up most all the film, which doesn't really happen in superhero or comic booky movies very often anymore. So I think he's really good. I think he plays a different type of Bruce Wayne than we've ever seen. I like this one only because I feel like this is the first Bruce Wayne that I actually kind of am concerned about and care about and like worried about, you know, where other Bruce Waynes is like, it's kind of, oh yeah, that's Bruce Wayne. Of course he's rich. He plays like a playboy, but he's also very in control and very competent as Batman. This one, I don't feel that he's got it all together quite yet. And that's obvious from the film. And it made it so much more interesting to watch and to follow. So starting with that's where I think, and of course he's in 75% of the movie and he drives the movie, which again is very unique for a Batman movie. So what's your thoughts on Mr. Pattinson and just the whole Batman role that he embodied here?
Overall, like you're saying, it was kind of surprising because with the other films, I mean, you've had, you know, Christian Bale, you've had George Clooney, you've had, you know, all the people. They do spend a lot of time with him out of costume because a lot of times I guess the actors want FaceTime or whatever, but you know, whatever. I understand that. But it was surprising how little we actually saw of Robert Pattinson's face.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I I thought he did a great job. Now, when he was Bruce Wayne, okay, I thought he did a great job as the Batman. When he was Bruce Wayne, I thought he did a good job, except for one scene that really didn't work for me. Okay, the scene worked, but particularly his performance in the scene didn't quite gel. And I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything, but basically it's a scene between him and Alfred at Alfred's bedside.
Oh, yeah.
And they're having an emotional connection moment, which I understand. I guess I could play it as this dude, Batman, or Bruce Wayne, sorry, because he's Bruce Wayne, he's not in costume. He really, you can tell he's tortured. Like you've mentioned, he's a really tortured soul. You really are thinking, dude, this guy's not all there. But when he talking, like he has this kind of like connection moment, and just the way he says it, it doesn't work. It's like Robert Pattinson didn't know how to play it. And maybe that's supposed to be on purpose. Maybe he's having trouble.
It was an awkward scene for him. My problem with that scene is I don't think the scene was built up and rewarded. I don't feel like we got enough. Well, that's one of my nitpick negatives to get into is, I mean, the Alfred character
was sidelined too much.
Sidelined, and then we're supposed to have this kind of more emotional moment that you're alluding to.
Gotcha.
That just didn't pay off because we didn't have anything to build us to that point.
I can see that, Chris. So, and Andy, let's go ahead and say Andy Serkis, who plays Alfred, I thought he was good, and I thought there was a lot of potential there.
Good. It's just very underused, and that's fine. We got a lot going on in this movie. It's a 3-hour movie.
Absolutely.
I don't need 30 extra minutes of Alfred in there.
Right.
But then when you have a scene that's meant to kind of be a pivotal point for this character involving Alfred, it just didn't resonate. I didn't buy it at all. So that was one of my negatives there.
Okay, so it sounds like, yes. But other than that, and maybe, okay, so I was kind of critiquing it as being Pattinson's performance, but maybe not. Maybe it's more of a script thing.
I think it's
and it was too much weight put on that moment, and it didn't work.
Because the fact of the matter is, even when we see Bruce Wayne out of the costume, he's still Batman.
Oh,
and that's what I thought was cool about it. He's not putting on any false fronts. I mean, he is Batman.
He's not smiling, the handsome millionaire.
Now, whether or not the series, and again, I don't want to get in speculation about future movies and all that, but whether that's still kind of in the works for an evolution of the character, where I think the whole idea of the Batman is Bruce Wayne feels like he's got to play the millionaire playboy role just for appearances and just to get close to people in high society. Maybe that will come. Maybe that's a role he forces himself to have to play. But I love seeing this early version that hasn't quite figured out the best way to navigate this city yet. So
it was interesting. And they mentioned that kind of early on, you see that he's looking at some files and he's like keeping diaries. So in theory, this is year 2. He's only been doing this for a year, so he's kind of new at it. So that was an interesting, where, Christian Bale had the Batman Begins, where he
covered the whole origin story and all. And this one just said, and hey, let's go ahead and give him applause where we can. We didn't have to watch his parents get murdered again.
Nope, that happened off screen.
I think that's the first version I've seen. I remember us seeing where of any telling of the story where we didn't have to depict that again. It's alluded to, it happened. There's some references to it, but it's not something they spend a lot of screen time like recreating and talking about, which is good.
I'll say a strength of the film for me, and I kind of knew I was going to be on board. Granted, it's teased in some of the trailers. You hear Nirvana's Something in the Way, and they use that in this film kind of as bookends. It's in the beginning and it's at the end, and that started playing in the way, the images they were showing on screen. There was the narration that worked at first for me with Bruce Wayne, Robert Pattinson kind of talking about what was going on. That in combination with the music and the cinematography, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to dig this.
I was going my notes right here. I've got the opening 15 minutes will either get you hooked on this film or not. Because I think if you love the first 10 to 15 minutes, the way they set this thing up, you're going to love the film. If you don't like the tone and the style that they're setting up early on, it's probably not going to work for you. But I did love that opening 15 minutes to the point where I went with my son to see it. And in that opening sequence where we've got it's setting up, describing Gotham City. We're seeing it kind of from the eyes of various, quote, low lives, people who are prone to be a little more troublemakers in the city or criminals. But the fear they all live in and the idea of shadows and what's in the shadows and the only thing that they've got is the big spotlight, Batman spotlight up in the sky kind of warning them. All of that was so well done to the point where I am I'm locked in at that point. I'm like, yes. And then to finally have him emerge at one point worked really, really well. So I thought it was great.
I thought just, I thought the narration, maybe it was a bit overused. I don't remember. I know it happened in the beginning and I thought it was good. Does it only happen twice?
I think so. I don't remember it happening in the middle of the film.
Okay, so maybe it was just at the fact at the end, the fact that they returned to the song, Something in the Way, and they had him doing the narration. And by that point, I've been in the theater for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I was like. I didn't feel like they needed it.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a nice bookend, and it wasn't overused throughout the film for me, but it was nice. It's the first time I think we've ever again got to kind of like really listen into what this guy's thinking. Because again, everything else it seemed like all other movies were kind of told what Batman's supposed to be thinking, or other people are commenting on it, but yet we actually get to hear it from him this time, which was nice. I will say that the music felt very good.
Yes.
The themes for me were not as memorable walking out of the theater as like the Hans Zimmer from the Christopher Nolan films, or obviously the Danny Elfman one from the Burton films. But I think the overall orchestral work of the film fit the film really well and made the film work. So I like the music overall, even though I could not pick out a theme that really resonated with me, one particular one. Zoe Kravitz playing Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
Very good. We talked about her when we reviewed Kimmy a few weeks ago, and I think we were both eager to see what she does in this film, and I thought she did great. I really liked this version of Catwoman, of Selena Kyle. And
Something I thought was interesting was, and it kind of had me a little worried when I'd seen some of the previews, was going to be the relationship between Batman and Catwoman, because they kind of played that up a little bit in the previews. And so I was like, I wasn't really, I go to a Batman movie for, the Batman story, not like a romance. And there have been romances, or there have been, relationships in other films, obviously. And this one, I thought the way they did it was good. It didn't bother me. I thought I was scared that they were going to kind of overplay it, but I don't think
hit
they
the
did.
right balance.
Yeah, there was.
I'll tell you this: I've found myself a little more emotionally invested in their relationship, to where at the end, when there's some point of where their relationship's going, I'm not trying to give away any spoilers. I'm kind of rooting for it. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm actually kind of invested in this relationship now, which I can't say I've ever been with another relationship in these films, or even comic book movies in general. So yeah, I thought that was really well done. Colin Farrell as the Penguin, Oswald, they call him Oz, but Oswald,
Ozzy, or
Ozzy,
yeah.
I thought he was really good as an actor. Unrecognizable almost as well. My only issue with it is I feel like his character was kind of pulled from the wrong movie. It did not fit the tone of the rest of the movie for me. Because he's a much more cartoonish version than I think any of the other characters in the film are really allowed to be. He's a little bit more from the Burton world, kind of dropped in here. Now, I thought he was really good.
Okay.
It's just, I think, when you put that much prosthetics, and he's kind of got a very styled mannerism voice and very over the top performance. I think it added some levity to the film, or added some kind of over the topness that the film needed, because the film was obviously very dark and brooding otherwise. Mm-hmm. But I also sometimes felt like it was a little too much for this film, and maybe felt a little more appropriate to like, a Burton supporting character or something from that. But anyway, I did think, in performance-wise, he was great.
See, that did not strike me at all. But it's interesting how you're talking about that being a callback to like a Burton thing, and it did kind of, in a sense, didn't work. Which I can see that. Didn't strike me that way. Okay. But something that did strike me as kind of a callback. And this is an interesting callback, because it's not a callback to any cinema versions of Batman. It's a callback to the TV show of Batman. Okay. And it bothered me.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm not really sure why they did it, because if this movie, which is rated PG-13, which that's another thing, it's got to be knocking on the door of R.
It was just a few moments, a few flashes and visual images away from being an
because
R.
Even I thought, briefly, remind me to come back to that. When we talk about that, I thought it was interesting how there were some times where really violent things were happening, but they would kind of blur and take things out of focus. And it was an interesting way to do that. But it's like, yeah, but we still totally know what's going on.
It's more the intent is all there.
Right. So, but it's like, I wonder if that's how maybe they escaped, because
It
for
must
me,
have
it's
been.
like, this is pretty gritty
well,
and
in
brutal.
several parts where he's just wailing on some bad guys, and it's pretty rough and violent. It happens just off screen, but you see him, you know what's happening.
Right.
You don't need to see the aftermath to know what's going on. And yeah, it's definitely knocking on the door there. So
Okay,
going
so
back to the
what thing that bothered me. So we get riddles, okay, from the Riddler.
Yeah.
And they're usually, a lot of times they come out in these little cards, which is cool. I like that whole setup.
Yeah.
But we are always read as if we cannot read the riddles. They're always read aloud by either Gordon or Batman. And it's like, yes, yeah, and they show us the card. We have plenty of time to read it, but it'll be like, oh, well, this says that. And I'm like, yes, we can read. And like, they did it at first, but like, well, and the only thing I could think of, maybe they're paying homage to the Adam West TV show where Batman, because, at that time when little kids are watching this, they can't read the riddles. They don't understand. And it's like a way of kind of not spoon feeding things, but like, I don't know. And it just really struck me. At first, I was like, oh, okay, what's the first one we have? But no, every single riddle or card is like read aloud.
Yeah,
and I thought that
interesting.
was really weird.
I didn't notice that, but
And maybe it's a call. Maybe it's a
Could be.
Maybe it's a callback. I don't know.
I'll say some other things on the positives. I thought the action scenes were well shot. Easy to follow. There's always concern when you have these big budget superhero movies that the action's just going to be too, all over the place and hard to follow and all. No, I thought these fight scenes were really, really well done. There's one scene or one shot in particular that I think has been in one of the trailers, but it's him coming up a dark hallway, fighting through a group of guys. And all you see is the machine gun fire lighting up the scene.
Yeah.
And again, it's chaotic, but yet you can follow it. It's like, it's easy. It's clear to see what's going on. And all of the fight scenes I thought were like that. They just worked. And so I was really happy with all that.
Well, I would agree with that. And going in, a lot of movies can be dark and you can't tell what's going on, especially during action sequences. And it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end up being suspenseful as much as it is just frustrating. And even though, Batman movies often take place at night when it's raining, and that happens in this film. But I agree with you. I had a clear sense, always had a clear sense of what was going on. And I think that's, handled that with the cinematography and the editing and the direction. And I'll say, I really thought the direction was kind of daring, and the way pacing as well. Matt Reeves, the director you mentioned, but this movie, it's 3 hours. There's a lot of plot, and it is doled out slowly. But I found it rewarding. But I can see, because it's just like they just it's.
I didn't have a problem
deliberate.
with the length of the film.
No, I didn't either.
My only issue, I do want to get to just a couple of things I think don't work quite as well. You've already kind of touched on a couple of areas for you. On that plotting. Yeah, I had no problem with the plot itself. I do feel like the backstory / revelations that we're meant to have or get that involve the Wayne family, crime boss, all that. There for a while in the film, it started to get a little convoluted, and they're just kind of jamming a lot into like a 15-20 minute period of time. A little bit of whiplash back and forth between things I thought could have been smoothed out a lot more throughout the course of the film, instead of kind of now here, learn this. Oh, no, wait a minute. Nope. No, actually it's like this. Oh, no, wait a minute. No, it is like this. It was like all within a 15-20 minutes, and it all happened to coincide in that hospital scene, which is also a scene I don't think worked as well too. So it's just kind of that was a period of the film where I was starting to get a little shaky. I'm like, all right, are they kind of losing the plot here a little bit by either making it a little more convoluted than they needed to, or maybe they should have really doled this out a little bit better. It got past it, and I think, it didn't affect the rest of the film for me, but it did there for a while. It was a little shaky, and I thought it could have been handled, the plotting, a little bit differently.
See, it's interesting because that actually worked really well for me, because I think by that time in the film, I enjoyed it. And like I said, things were slow, but I kind of needed a little jolt.
Okay.
And there was information
like that got it for
revealed
you.
but there was stuff that I had never really considered, and stuff that, at least for me, because I didn't read a lot of the comic books, was kind of a new thought that could be part. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I'd never considered that could be the case. So I don't know. It worked, but I can see how it maybe seemed a little cluttered.
I think the fact that it was all around that hospital scene that we were just talking about too, that I just don't think worked as well, might have just kind of compounded all of that point where I'm like, all right, that was a point in the film where I thought things were a little on the shakier legs. It stabilized. It still got better. Other takeaway for me, a little bit of a question, things that did not work as well for me. The final action sequence. There's some actions the director makes in terms of calling our attention to what the motivations are for Batman in a final action sequence, what he's trying to accomplish. That got really muddled. To me, it was honestly, I wasn't sure where we were supposed to be leading to believe that there's a little bit of an idea of, was he sacrificing himself on something? What was he trying to do? It has to do with a big flood of water and a electrical thing happening, and just a couple of the actions and the supporting characters around him, their reaction to Batman when he takes an action. I just didn't know what was trying to be accomplished there. And I still am a little curious about that. We can talk about it off mic and just see what I was thinking about that. But I did not take from it, was it meant to be a sacrificial move? Was it meant to be a rescue move? Was it meant to be kind of I don't know. And again, it sounds like I'm getting a little nitpicky, but that was kind of the final action sequence. I was really digging it up until that moment, and I just didn't quite understand what the overall motivation or what the direction we're supposed to take was with the characters there. So it was a little confusing. Kind of even had to ask, my son afterwards. I'm like, all right, what was that all about? So that, I hate when that happens in a film, especially in the last sequence there.
So I know the moment you're talking about, and I think it worked for me, but I understand. I can see your criticism there. Again, there's a lot. There's a lot going on in this film.
You're right.
And I think ultimately, even though it is slowly paced out, there's so much going on. Even though it's slowly paced, you don't really have time to think about it. But it's kind of like the whole Christopher Nolan Inception effect with that movie, where there's so much going on, and if you stop to think about it, some things may not kind of add up. Or like with Tenet, it's like this puzzle piece, which for Riddler is appropriate. But for me, I was having such a good time that if some things didn't quite link up, it was okay. Now, I'll be interested to see on a second viewing, which that's always a good sign, after you see a film, if you want to bother to ever see it again, even though it's 3 hours, which is monumental because you and I normally, that's definitely something I ding about runtime. But I'm willing to go see this movie again. Because I want to see how certain things shake out, and kind of, now that I know where it's going,
well,
I would like
it's going to be on HBO Max in 45 days.
Well, I was wondering if that was the case, because I know Warner Brothers Films,
So
had done that previously.
So basically mid-April, it'll be already online.
Well,
that's good. So that means if you were itching to see it again, you're going to have an easy
I don't
chance
have to
do
be
it.
a billionaire and pay the ticket price.
That's correct.
Again, so I've got two things.
Sure, go ahead.
And I'm going to switch it up.
I knew we had a lot to talk about with this, so yes, please
Sure.
go ahead. What are your
but we don't, we do have another film to talk about. I'm going to end on the positive. So I'll say the negative, even though it would be counterintuitive because it talks about the end of the film. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a jail cell conversation and kind of a possible reveal, which I think at this point it would be about a possible next chapter that felt over the top fan servicey.
Yes.
That I was disappointed in, and I was kind of. Now I'll give them credit that at least they didn't put it after the end credits, or so that make people stick around just because that would have been a total Marvel move. No, they go ahead and it just didn't work for me.
Well, it didn't work because again, we're not trying not to spoil it here.
Sure,
it's a very much a been there, done that.
Yeah,
seems like it really did feel like it was just thrown in there truly to tease and give some fan service, and
it could have been done, and it's like if it would have just been done more subtly, but no, it was really like spoon feeding. I felt so. Okay, so
I agree with you on that. I did not like the tease at the end. I just don't think that worked. And,
so that's the negative. But I'll end on a positive. I love the moment, and I'm not to say this hasn't happened in other Batman movies, but I felt like it really stood out for me in this one, probably because we know this is like the second year he's been doing this. He's still kind of learning who he is or how he can be Batman. But the not so successful Batman glider that actually looked like a flying squirrel, I thought it was really fun. I'm like, man, that looks dumb. Not only does it kind of look dumb, but then it doesn't really work that well. And I was like, wow. And even my wife commented afterwards. She's like, yeah, it's kind of weird when one of his gadgets really doesn't go well. I'm like, yeah, that was kind of weird and awesome.
It was good. No, actually, and I mean, this isn't a film with a lot of humor.
No.
But I mean, you did get a little bit of a chuckle when that thing kind of just started. Yeah, it was working, but then it just kind of doesn't, and it really causes. I mean, he
gets
takes a
beaten up.
beating from it,
Yeah.
and even when he's kind of standing up, you kind of get this idea of like he's even thinking to himself, "Okay, yeah, that didn't go too well," and, So there was a little bit of a chuckle in the audience, which I'm like, yeah, just it's kind of fun to see. He's still a young guy. He's still a guy trying to figure this thing out and hasn't quite got it all perfected yet. And I like that a lot. All right. So, Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
This is probably an unfair question just to close out our conversation of this film. But it is one that you and I have both been.
I think I might know where this is
But it's
going.
one you and I have been anticipating for a long time. So I feel like we got to give it due notice here.
Where does this rank?
Where does this rank? Do you have that yet, or are you confident enough in your opinions to state this, or do you need another viewing later on to solidify it?
I need another viewing, but I will say just offhand, and of course I'll qualify it. That's what we do on this show. Because we qualify everything. Well, I'll say this, but okay. Without the second viewing, I just watched this yesterday. As we're recording this, I just watched this. So I haven't even had a full 24 hours. This might be my favorite Batman movie.
Wow.
Now, if it's not my favorite, it is definitely in the top 3.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And how I can say that is, okay, I like the Tim Burton Batmans.
Yes.
Okay. I need to see Batman Returns again.
Okay.
Because the first one, like you're saying, it's more interested in the Joker, Jack Nicholson. Why wouldn't you be? But the Burton ones come across as being a lot more like style and tone and
absolutely.
weirdness. But as far as actually being a good movie, I don't know if we can say that. So then we can skip the Joel Schumacher ones because, most people do. We get to the Nolan ones. I like those, but the trilogy nature, I like Batman Begins. Like something about, I like them. And maybe it's because Bale, to me, there was something lacking in his Batman. I don't know. There's a lot to like there. And obviously those would be the ones that, Dark Knight was probably up at the top, followed by like some of the Tim Burton ones. But I don't know. This one, I really liked how, to me, fresh it was for the reasons we've discussed. Not that I think it's a perfect film, but I don't know. It's high up there. So what's your takeaway?
It is battling between 1 and 2 for me.
Okay. So what would be your one?
Batman Begins.
Okay.
I still love Batman Begins. The first Nolan film to me I still remember the feeling coming out of that film, just being energized and just like, yeah, this is what I wanted to see. Now I feel like the Nolan films, Dark Knight is a very, very good film, but I don't feel like it's a great Batman film. I still feel like he loses sight of what the Batman character is. And it's more about Bruce Wayne, who acts as a vigilante in his free time. And it's just, okay, yeah, but it still worked. And of course, the Joker was a standout for that film.
Sure.
But Batman Begins as an origin story and just setting the mood and kind of giving us all the backstory I loved. So, I'm fine with even thinking of Batman Begins as like truly an origin. And then this Batman is like right after that happens. It's like, this is now where the character has evolved to. I'm okay with kind of that dynamic. But yeah, it waffles between 1 and 2, either Batman Begins or the Batman.
Gotcha.
I will say this. I love all the Nolan films and I love all the Burton films. Both of the Burton films.
Same.
There's a huge chasm between those films, which I love all 6 of the films we just talked about. The 3 Nolan, the 2 Burton, and now this new one. Then there's a huge gap, and then you've got anything that Snyder touched, and definitely anything that Schumacher touched. So like just way, way pushed down there. So all 6 films in that grouping I love, but this one I do think is battling between 1 and 2 for me. So yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad to hear we came away happy with this film. Obviously. That is the Batman. It is still playing in theaters, will be for a while, but by mid to late April, it's going to be on HBO Max for those of you that do not wish to go visit the theater, but still want to check this out. A 3-hour viewing time might be a little easier to accommodate in a home viewing as well after you've seen it.
True.
So I will look forward to seeing it again for sure when it comes out on streaming. Looking forward to that. All right. Chris, let's go on to our second review then, which is the film on Hulu. Hulu streaming, I think... It didn't do any theater release. I think it's just a Hulu release.
I think it went exclusively
starring Sebastian Stan. It is the film Fresh.
Tell me something you don't want me to know. I hate this.
Okay.
Put all our hopes of finding happiness through someone else.
Yeah.
Girl, you all dickmatized and I haven't even seen this dude.
What's going on?
I'm gonna tell you, but you're gonna freak out.
No, this isn't happening.
Yeah, it's happening. No games. Know what you wanted? It's about giving. Giving yourself over to somebody. Becoming one forever. That's love.
Fresh is a film that is fresh out of Sundance, like we mentioned in the opening of the show. It is by director Mimi Cave, and it tells centers around a character named Noah, who is a female, played by Daisy Edgar Jones, who I was completely unfamiliar with her,
Yeah,
so she
same
was
here.
new to me. But it focuses on the horrors of modern dating seen through her defiant battle to survive her unusual new boyfriend, and the boyfriend is played by one Sebastian Stan. So this is one of those films that I'd heard very little about. We're going to try to reveal very little in this review because part of the fun of this film is kind of going into it and not really knowing what you're getting into. A matter of fact, I suggested it to Alan, and like he said in the setup, he had no idea. I enjoyed it. It is a thriller. Some parts of it are kind of hard to watch. And I guess I just want to know Alan's initial thoughts on kind of his process as he was watching this film.
Yeah, let's talk about my process.
What do you think about Fresh?
All right. So like you said, a little behind the scenes on the show here. So Chris and I try to decide what two films we're going to review every time we get together. And we're normally swapping texts or maybe seeing each other in the hallway here at the offices and just like, hey, how about with this one? Or maybe this. And I like it when Chris Fry recommends a film that I know nothing about. And he says, oh, we should review this. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard of it, but cool. My step at that point is I simply just go into my Apple TV or wherever I'm and just do a little search. Oh, the name of the film is Fresh. Cool. Fresh. Sebastian Stan stars it. I know Sebastian Stan. He's a Marvel guy. And, he's Tommy Lee in the Pam and Tommy show. I'm like, cool. Oh, it's about online dating, maybe. And it's tagged as a thriller. Oh, this sounds like it could be interesting. We'll see. About half an hour into this film, I'm asking myself, why Chris Fry did you have me watch this film? Without giving away where it goes, I will just say it was I liked it. Okay. I did have a good time.
So unlike the previous review of The Sky is Everything, where I recommended that out of the blue, you liked this better than The Sky is Everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I liked it. It's just, man, it was a
Can be a tough watch at times.
It's a tough watch.
Okay.
Without getting into the reason why.
Sure.
Just say it was a very, very difficult watch. Did not go where I expected it to.
Okay.
I had an inkling it was going to go in a certain direction, which it did. I did not expect it to go in the extreme direction that it did.
Got you.
And that was a little shocking. Again, a little tough to comprehend and watch. So yeah, it is going to be a little tough to talk about this film without really exploring all that, but I think we can do that.
I think it's fair to say, since it's billed as a thriller, and Sebastian, I said, he plays an unusual new boyfriend. It's fair to say the boyfriend's got issues.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think that's where, their relationship is what provides the dramatic tension and the thriller nature of the film. For me, it was just fun to see. Sebastian Stan, all I know him as is the Winter Soldier. He's, like you said, he's been in the Pam and Tommy thing. I haven't seen him in that.
Well, he's Tommy Lee in the Pam and Tommy kind of series. He was also in the I, Tonya film. He played
that's right.
He played Tanya's boyfriend, I believe.
Right. I think you're right. Yeah. I'd forgotten that he was in that. Okay.
Which was also by the same director who made the Pam and Tommy
Got
series.
you. Okay. I hadn't put that together. Okay.
And then he's done some other interesting choice work as well. So what I like about Sebastian Stan is, yes, he's a Marvel guy. Yes, he's in a big blockbuster. Yes, he's a very handsome fellow. But it seems like outside of Marvel, he's kind of wanting to take on some very unique and interesting roles. This is not a role I would have expected him to take because it is very contrary to the persona that, Marvel and the big superhero blockbuster films allow him to be.
Agreed.
I say it's a daring role. It's a showy role.
It is.
It's obviously one I think it's fun to play.
Seems like he had fun.
Seems like it. Channeling a little bit of again, try not to give away. Channeling a little bit I will just say the style of performance reminded me a lot of, speaking of Batman in the previous film, Christian Bale in the film American Psycho. Again, not trying to necessarily draw any parallels, just the performance.
Right.
The very kind of...
There's uses of music.
There's the use of the pop music. That seems to be a kind of the main thing with him. He's always singing along to like 80s and 90s kind of cheesy pop songs. And kind of a little over-the-top performance at times. And yeah, there's a little bit of that in there. And I think it was a good performance. And I'll also say too, I thought the lead, Daisy Edgar Jones was also very, very good. And I thought she
has to go toe to toe with him. And I thought she played it off really, really well.
And there's moments in the film where you're not quite sure where she is.
Right.
Emotionally or mentally. And that's good because it kept us on edge as well.
Yes.
Where I didn't feel like, I really honestly found myself questioning where her character was going. Because typically in a thriller, you kind of just know what
progression wise,
where where the lead character's mind is in a thriller. Here, I honestly, there for a while, thought, okay, maybe this is taking a turn that I did not expect, and maybe I'm off on where this girl is. And that I like the fact that it kept me guessing about her where she was mentally or what her end goal was in this movie. So
I think it's a way for the film overall. To me, struck me as a big statement for strong females in cinema.
Oh, sure.
And but did so in a way that wasn't preachy to me.
No.
Because it is a thriller film, but the Daisy Edgar Jones who plays Noah, she's really strong. She has a strong relationship with another female, Molly, played by JoJo Gibbs, and she's really good. They're best friends and they rely on each other and they have a really strong relationship. And it's really interesting to see how they examine that. There's a funny thing too. We talk about the different music cues, but there's the Golden Girls song, "Thank You for Being My Friend," that's used at a very pivotal point. That's amazingly done.
Yes,
and I'll never hear that song without thinking of that moment in the film again.
Well, this is a first-time director. Well, first-time feature film director.
Gotcha.
Mimi Cave, as you mentioned. She has directed a lot of short films and music videos. But This is the first feature-length film. It's very well done. I mean, it was it's stylish. It had a lot of stylistic elements to it. It definitely kept it visually interesting to watch just as much as the story itself. So yeah, I thought it worked. And yeah, there's a dance sequence late in the film too. I really liked. Mainly because it's at a point in the film where I really don't know where the lead character's minds are at that point. And the dance kind of could have been interpreted in many different ways at that point. And I just liked it. So I thought they did enough interesting to make this a little more than just a root thriller, suspense thriller. This really had a little bit more going for it. Again, I just got to come back to the subject matter. Once you realize what's happening in this film is it's tough.
Yeah,
it is tough to watch.
Yes. I understand. Something that we talked about how the strong female thing, and that was awesome. Something that I also appreciated was there's a little bit of there could be at the kind of towards the conclusion of the film a chance for a male to come to the rescue being teased.
Oh yeah,
and that is totally undermined.
No,
and I won't go into it.
That was actually great.
And I was like, that's all, because in a lot of films it's like, they'll let you have the strong women, but at some point, the man's got to come. Yeah. Man's got to come rescue things.
And it was a great.
And it was totally like, nope, I'm out.
I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
When that happened, I think a lead character hears screaming or hears something in the background and basically says, "Yep, I'm out. I'm out of here," and we don't see him again. He's gone. Nope. So that was actually really funny.
I think that to balance the thriller aspect, and there's some horror stuff in here, but to also have the comedy, I think that's a rare thing to be able to balance. And if you're on board with it, the comedy, like you're saying, or we've said before, it can really break the really seriousness or the really stuff that's really got you on edge.
Well, there's that comedic moment. And then even, again, not spoiling, one of the last lines of dialogue, I think the two friends say to each other when they're kind of recapping what just happened, and it's kind of acknowledgement of, somebody, that person's married, type of thing, like completely has nothing to do with the trauma they just went through, but just still just funny to kind of hear them digesting and trying to put together what just happened. And, it works. So there's enough humor in there. Sebastian Stan's character did add some humor, although very obviously dark humor and, not meant to be comedic, but just he gives it his go in this performance. I think everybody's along for the ride. If you can deal with, if you can stomach the subject matter,
sure,
I think it's a fun time. But I am just going to go ahead and warn, because I feel like I have to play sometimes the parental advisor here to people. It is a tough watch.
Sure,
it is a very, very, very tough watch.
Okay, fair enough.
Many, many moments for me.
But if you like thriller / horror type stuff, then, and this is obviously, yes, it will be the Batman was PG-13. This is definitely a hard R.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Yeah. So.
Both in what it's discussing subject matter and what it shows.
Right.
It's definitely a rough one.
Yeah.
So, well, that is Fresh. I mean, it sounds like we both had a good time with it. You may have actually even had a better time with me. I still wrestle with.
I would have even had a better
content.
time if I could have been watching Alan watching it.
No, seriously, I'm watching it late last night, and I honestly, like 30 minutes in, I'm like, what, why did Chris Fry do this to me? So,
awesome.
But I still enjoyed it, so it's still good. All right, that is Fresh. It is on Hulu. If you're a Hulu subscriber, you can get that right now to see. It is recommended with just some asterisks for me about making sure you're watching it at the right time of day, watching it with the right frame of mind, watching it, before or after a meal. I'd be just cautious. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair
I'll
enough.
leave it at that. I think that's vague enough, right? So
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Well, good. 2 good positive reviews, The Batman and Fresh, both positive reviews from both of us. All right, Chris, let's take a quick break from the reviews. We're going to come back in just a moment. We've got just a little bit of movie news to talk about. The Independent Spirit Awards happened this weekend. We do want to recap the winners from that and talk through some thoughts on that. And then we both have a recommendation to share for a film we think is worth checking out. So you are listening to Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv, and we will talk to you in just a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv. We just had our positive reviews of both films, The Batman and Fresh, The Batman in movie theaters, coming to HBO Max in a few weeks. And then Fresh is on Hulu that you can watch right now. So Chris, just to hit a little bit of movie news, don't have a lot to cover this week, but did want to talk about, we talk about the Oscars so much. We talk about the Academy Awards. They're coming up in about 3 weeks. I know we'll be digesting all the results of that whenever that ceremony happens.
Sure.
But let's not forget about the smaller films, the independent films. There is an Independent Spirit Awards ceremony that happens every year. It used to happen like just a few days before the Academy Awards. That was kind of their thing.
Okay.
Then they went to all virtual over the last couple of years. Now they did I think they did a televised or on, it was hosted by Megan Maloney and Nick Offerman.
Okay.
And they did do a ceremony for it, and that just happened over the weekend. So here it is a few weeks before Academy Awards, but also the Academy Awards are much later this year. So
sure.
That's part of the reason, I think. So I thought let's just talk through some of the outcomes. I did think it was interesting. Chris, I believe as we go through this, I think you have seen all of these movies.
Okay.
I have not.
Okay.
I've only seen maybe a third of the ones I'm going to mention.
So as long as Pig won in every category, I'm probably going to be good because it's more.
I'll give you one category that you're going to be happy with.
Okay.
Others, I don't think you were as high on many of these films, which will be kind of interesting to see.
Okay.
Let me just kind of start. Here's something I think is really interesting about the Spirit Awards. they have a couple of award categories that are very specific in what they're trying to recognize. So, for example, the Robert Altman Award is an award they give out. It's given to a film's director, casting director, and its ensemble cast. So it's like recognizing the whole cast and the director who brings them together and makes it work.
Interesting.
Mass was the winner of that award this year.
You're right. That's a cool award.
I think it is too.
Way to go, Independent Spirit Awards.
The John Cassavetes Award is an award given to a film that was made for under $500,000. And the winner of that is Shiva Baby, which we talked about and we both liked and had some good things to say about that film.
No, I haven't heard the rest of this stuff yet. I feel like there's a butt coming.
Well,
but I gotta say that sounds like more like my award show. I wish I had more visualization of that because I'd actually like to watch those awards.
Well,
let
me go through the rest of the categories and see how you feel. I mean, you didn't hate any of these films.
Okay.
I just know that you were maybe not as impressed or a little let down or didn't see quite the big deal about it.
Gotcha.
The Best Feature Film Award was The Lost Daughter, which I know you haven't reviewed on the film, but podcast, but I know you've told me in passing. It's
one of those that's like, sometimes at our year end, we didn't do it this like some people got this film and I didn't really get it. Or some people, the film that I wasn't as high on as everybody else. This is definitely in that category.
But it won big actually at the Spirit Awards. It won Best Feature. It won Best Director for Maggie Gyllenhaal. It won Best Screenplay for Maggie Gyllenhaal as well.
Okay.
The Best Female Lead was Taylor Page from Zola. And you did not care for Zola, if I remember correctly.
Not.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's interesting to me. I mean, not that she did a bad job in that, but I guess just the overall film just wouldn't have put that on my radar. But okay, interesting.
Best Male Lead was Simon Rex from Red Rocket.
Yeah.
See, these are all films I know you saw.
Zola not as much as in the Lost Daughter category, but Red Rocket is definitely one of those where, and maybe it's because by the time I saw it, I'd heard just glowing over the top reviews. And not to say Simon Rex did a bad job, but it's just interesting.
Supporting female was Ruth Negga from Passing.
Okay.
Supporting male was Troy Kotsur from Coda.
Okay.
Is that one I know you did like Coda?
Now, is that did he win some other award recently as well? Okay, because I know that like a lot of people were like insanely happy that he won a SAG award.
Might have been.
And people were just like over the top because they thought he did a good job and he was obviously super excited. And a lot of people are now saying, okay, we think he may have the Oscar.
Yeah.
So, okay. Interesting.
Best cinematography was Passing.
Okay.
Best editing was Zola. Best documentary was Summer of Soul, which I know you've seen.
Oh, yeah. And, we did we review it on the show?
We did not.
Okay.
And Best International Film was Drive My Car, which we have reviewed and talked about. So the one I'll give you, Chris, that you'll be happy to hear. Best First Screenplay went to Michael Saranosky. It was a story by Vanessa Block, which is Pig.
Yay.
So Pig did get an award.
Okay.
The only award it may be taking away any of the award season. But, I'm with you. After reading through this and seeing kind of some of the categories of awards they also had like a best someone to watch, like kind of a director to watch in the future. They recognize as an award. It's some really great categories. And again, this is a film thing that, the Academy Awards aren't going to touch, I don't think, any of these films. Maybe Coda.
Right.
Maybe Lost Daughter. I know it's nominated for things, but everything else I listed, in Summer of Soul, I think is going to get some documentary love at the Academy Awards is my guess.
Yeah, and it was nominated. So
but a lot of these other films didn't get a whole lot of Oscar love. So I think it's I am definitely more in tune to going to kind of follow the Spirit Awards in the future and see what they end up doing.
Right. Well, yeah. I'll say at least for North Carolina, I'll give a shout out to the organization you and I are both members of. North Carolina Film Critics. Nicolas Cage was nominated for Best Actor. He didn't win. He lost out to Mr. Cumberbatch, who may end up getting the Oscar. So I was thinking for a second when you were like, it may be the only award. I was like, wait a second. I was like, maybe we got, but no. But he was at least nominated. But oh well.
So anyway, that's the Independent Spirit Awards. Again, I think it is going to be something we may want to start covering each year, just to kind of talk about, because I like the way they set up the awards categories and recognizing some emerging talent. And especially those low budget films, which I think is great. I love the idea of a film that's like made for a very limited budget and still turned out a really great product. So
sure.
All right. So that's all I have for news. So why don't we just hop right into our recommendations, if that's okay with you? We spent
Sure.
a lot of time on the Batman and all that, so we'll make up for it here in the news section. But let's go into our recommendations. So Chris, what is a film recommendation you have for us? Something we ought to check out, you think?
So I'm going to recommend another film that is also just fresh from Sundance 2022. We'd reviewed Fresh earlier in the show. This one is a completely different type of movie. It's After Yang, and the plot description is: in the near future, a family reckons with questions of love, connection, and loss after their AI helper unexpectedly breaks down. It's by the director Kogonada, who's made another film and has also made a lot of like shorts and stuff. But I haven't actually seen his other film, his previous film, Columbus, although I definitely want to, especially after Yang. It stars Colin Farrell, so there's got some star power behind it. And I just thought it was, I gave you the tagline, but another reason kind of why I liked it was imagine a quieter, more deliberately paced AI, Steven Spielberg's AI. Imagine like a quieter, version of that. And that's what this was. And I dug it. Definitely more contemplative, but I really liked it. There's tons of style in it. So it is in theaters, some theaters, but it is also, if you are a Showtime subscriber, it's also on Showtime. So you can see it there. And it just came out, I think, on Showtime March 4th. So you can catch up with it there. So that's my recommendation, is After Yang. And Yang is the name of the AI robot thing. So there you go, After Yang.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to throw a recommendation out that's a little off-brand for me. But
Okay.
just a quick backstory on it. Twitter can be a wonderful tool sometimes. It can also be a kind of a frustrating tool to use.
Sure.
But there are a lot of people in the film community and film review community I follow on Twitter, and just normally get some ideas of things to check out or watch from some other people recommending things. One particular podcaster who's big in the film reviews and discussion about films posted up a clip from a film that kind of got me just intrigued. So I did end up going to watch it.
Okay.
It is on Netflix. The film is called The Fable, The Killer Who Doesn't Kill.
Oh.
It is a Japanese film. It is based on a manga
Okay.
work. It is a action with even some comedy in it.
Now, is it done in the anime style, or no? It's just based.
No,
on that?
it's real.
Okay.
It's live action, but
Okay.
it's based on, I think, an original manga work.
Okay.
The idea is that, and it's a sequel, which is really weird. I haven't
Whoa.
seen the original.
And that didn't hinder your.
No, I
okay.
still had a good time with it. The original, my understanding is the original is this idea that a guy who's been trained as a ruthless assassin since childhood, a mob hitman, he's ordered to become a normal law-abiding citizen. Like his boss is worried about his working too hard.
Okay.
So basically forces him to try to be a normal law-abiding citizen. Now, that's basically the premise of the sequel as well. There's a guy he's a trained assassin, but he's actually goes through the movie with the intent of not wanting to kill anybody. He's trying to live a normal life, but he gets wrapped up in a whole situation.
Okay.
Here's the reason I recommend this film. It's not a great film, but there are a couple of action sequences. One in particular, about 2/3 of the way through the movie, is expertly done. Such a good long action sequence involving scaffolding outside of a building. You remember Shang-Chi we talked about, we enjoyed it, some of the action sequences there, and that was one we pointed out.
Sure.
We liked. This one puts that to shame. This one is just expertly choreographed. It goes on for a really long time, and it's really well done. The rest of the movie is fine. It's good. And there's another action sequence that's also pretty impressive early in the film too. That's the reason I checked it out. The guy who put the posting about this film up actually put up one of the action sequences, is like, oh my God, this is insane. And I watched that scene. I'm like, yeah, that is a
That is
pretty
insane.
insane scene. So I went to go watch the whole movie, and overall the movie's good, and I had a good time with it. My understanding is the original had more humor, was a little more zany. This one tones a little more serious, but still has some elements of humor in it.
Now, what year did the film?
2021.
Okay,
so just
so
last year.
are both movies on Netflix or just?
That's a good question. I don't know if the original just called The Fable.
Okay.
I don't know if it's on Netflix or not, but The Fable, The Killer Who Doesn't Kill is definitely on Netflix. Okay. So it's labeled as an action comedy mystery.
Oh.
And, you know, I had a fun time watching it.
Okay.
But again, I did seek it out and watch it solely because this action sequence I just thought was really, really fun to watch and just well done. So
okay,
that is it's a little off brand for me. I'm normally not recommending kind of a more martial arts themed manga inspired film, but this one I did have a good time with it. So if you're looking for something where you just want to see some really cool stunts, kind of not quite Jackie Chan style, but just these long, elaborate set pieces with action sequences. This one's definitely got some good ones in it. And I had fun with it. It's a little long. It's 2 hours, 15 minutes. But
it's on Netflix. So you can
it's on
pause
Netflix.
it.
You can kind of take your time with it. So
Okay.
I throw out a little random recommendation for me. Something not expected. But
Awesome.
it was fun. It was a fun movie. All right, Chris. Well, I think we are done for today then. So positive reviews of The Batman by Matt Reeves. Positive review of Fresh with Sebastian Stan on Hulu. Then we talked about the Independent Spirit Awards. So we kind of kept our thoughts on those. And then our recommendations. You had After Yang. I have The Fable, The Killer Who Doesn't Kill on Netflix. So, Chris, anybody who wants to chime in on our Batman discussion, or maybe they get tricked into watching Fresh and have some words to share with us about the experience we put them through, how do they get a hold of us?
So you can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can also follow us on Twitter @footcandlefilm. Al and I are both on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and sometimes leave short reviews. Do us a favor, if you would. Consider giving us a star rating or writing a review. Share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on. It'll help us reach new listeners, and we'd appreciate it. Last but not least, Foot Candle Film Festival, the 2022 version, is coming up September 21st through the 25th. So make plans to try to attend, or we'll probably have a virtual component if you don't live in North Carolina or don't live in Hickory, that would be, and you can't travel here. We'll probably make it available to other people in North Carolina to watch.
Yeah, we will definitely be putting out some more notices and word about the festival. Probably in the June, July timeframe. I think you'll start to hear a lot more specifics, but we do know the dates. Lock it in, put it on your calendar, and we hope to have you join us here or virtually, however that's available at that time. So, all right. Well, Chris, we're going to wrap it up then. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv. And we will look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.